For early access to more videos like this, plus exclusive content, community discussions, and more, become a patron at patreon.com/BrucePoinsett. What's going on, world? It's Bruce, and welcome to Oregon Kwanzaa Stories, Day 7. We made it, everyone. Today is Imani, or faith. But first, what is Oregon Kwanzaa Stories? It's a 7-part mini storytelling series based on the principles of Kwanzaa, and we're doing it just to give the holiday the respect it deserves. So I've been going over big spiels with that, but just respect the holiday. It's really that simple. It's educational. There's a lot you could get from it, and we don't need to be out here just putting capes on for Christmas like that. We really don't. Anyways, today before we get into it, please, if you have stories about Imani or faith that you would like to share, please put them in the comments and make sure to like, share, subscribe, and all the good YouTube stuff so we can continue to grow this page, grow this community. Now let's talk about Imani, or faith. So right here we have something from One United that, is another good top of the page. Or on the last day of Kwanzaa, when we light the final candle, we celebrate Imani, or faith. That means honoring our best traditions as a family and community. So I've always had an interesting relationship with faith. I'm very much agnostic. My parents are very much Christian. They grew up in the church in South Carolina, Black church in South Carolina during the civil rights era. So that church is very much a part of them. But when they were always telling me those stories, they also made it very clear that the church was integral in organizing spaces. So, my cousin Septima Poinsett Clark was known as the Queen Mother of the Civil Rights Movement, and a lot of the work she did in terms of, organizing and getting people, educated on voter literacy and, just getting people organized and activated, that happened in churches. That happened in church buildings. That's where a lot of people, they say during slavery days, that's where people would go to, at least show the masters that they were, practicing the religion, but they were also at the same time using that space because that's the one place the master wasn't looking to organize. And that's always something that kind of stuck with me. But also, when I think about the work of church, and specifically, responding beyond just studying faith, but actually responding to people's needs and doing, quote unquote, good works in the community. It's always been a part of it too. It makes me think of, there's the show, used to be a show on Adult Swim called Black Jesus. And, it's kind of a goofy, funny show, but one of the premises was that that Black Jesus and his followers would create you can check it out here, but they created a taco truck, and they were just going around serving people in the community. And it seems like a throwaway thing, but really I think is actually kind of deep in terms of talking about church isn't necessarily about the building. It's about where the people are and going to the people and serving them. So that's always been kind of, in one way, I think, subtly ingrained in me. However, at the same time, I've also, because again, I am agnostic, I find myself very repellent to the actual, religious aspect of organized religion. So how does that work out? How do these two go together? Well, first, I think it starts with the church that I grew up in, which was Ainsworth UCC in Northeast Portland. So again, my parents are from South Carolina. when they came to Oregon, you know, they didn't have community people out here, but they found Ainsworth. It was a church very much about social justice, very much about, really being in there and being involved, not just, preaching the religion, but, living out those teachings in real life. So, as you can see, it's very clear. You're multicultural, multiracial, open and affirming, just peace, accessible, new sanctuary movement. It's a lot of words, a lot of people, but it was a community. And honestly, I'll be real with you, as an agnostic, it's something I took for granted for a lot of my life. Like today as I, parlay and, you know, spend more time with organizers, it's funny to think that I grew up in a church where that was just kind of the normal thing, where like I said, you take for granted that all these people around you are the same people who, when you see clergy being arrested on TV for sitting in front of like an ICE detention center and things like that, those people from Ainsworth. You see these marches in the streets, you see people out and active all across, again, not just at the pulpit, but in the streets, on, in radio shows, in all aspects in government, in all aspects of, justice work. So it's actually kind of fitting that when my mother and a person named Liberty Miller came together to form the group Respond to Racism LO, for which I am a volunteer now, that it would be at, a sister church of Ainsworth, Lake Oswego UCC, which funny enough was actually, you know, right down the street from where I grew up as a child. But a big part of it was, again, that UCC connection, that, just the relationships built through the years of these church networks. And you come into, fast forward, it's 2017, or I should say 2020 now. And since 2017, had these monthly meetings before the pandemic at LOUCC. We're doing work and doing collaborative projects with people, you know, at the UCC in Portland, you know, at other churches. For some reason, I have not become any less agnostic, but for some reason, I keep finding myself in churches doing this organizing work, whether, you know, it's putting together stuff like panels, whether it's, hosting watch parties and things like that. It always comes back to church. It always comes back to these religious spaces, or, even another partner of ours has been the Baha'i Center in Lake Oswego. And it's just all these different, you just keep coming back to these faith communities where I don't think it's a coincidence, because they have the infrastructure in terms of not just a building, not just people, but really these are, institutions designed to create and facilitate community. And furthermore, even in this time where, a lot of churches are dealing with, members are dying off, and, the younger members are a lot like me. They're not really interested in doing Bible study or getting into the religion. They might be interested in the works. You have a lot of churches who are wondering, okay, so how do we modernize? How do we stay, how do we keep things going, or do we let it die? And what I've seen, maybe it's the times, maybe it's, the moment and just the circumstances we're in, but we're seeing the melding even more so of this natural connection between how people can be serving the community, and then these spaces where, yeah, maybe, churches are losing members, but these buildings are still very valuable and holding space for people. They're still valuable for gathering resources. they're still valuable for organizing. And you don't have to necessarily ask people to, or I should say, demand that people come to them to get involved. With Respond, we're out there with doing street demonstrations. We're out there engaging City Hall and LO schools. You know, we're out there doing activities throughout the community and bringing people to where, or finding people, I should say, where they're at. But the work never changes. And again, we have people coming from all different, religious backgrounds, never mind ethnic backgrounds, and, all different identities. But what ties us together is really the tradition of serving people. And for me, I think that's why, again, I keep finding myself, no matter how agnostic I may get, I keep finding myself in the church because that's, at least I can't say every church, there's the mega churches, there's the fundamentalists, there's a lot of other things, but I can never stray too far away from the justice community in the Christian space. And I wouldn't want to, because there's too much good work happening. There's too much opportunity. These spaces hold so much power. So as we sign off for, this year's Kwanzaa celebration, I just want you to think about, how can we continue to build on this? How can we continue to use these spaces to not just do the organizing on the surface, but the necessary community building, the necessary wraparound services where we're really taking care of each other and powering the work through that strong connection and that strong commitment to serving the people. And with that, I will see you on the next video. Again, make sure to like, share, subscribe, all the good YouTube stuff, and make sure to, become a patron if you'd like more videos like this, patreon.com/Bruce Poinsett. And I will see you on the next video. Happy Kwanzaa. I'll see you next year.